Welcome back to Road to Recovery, the show that offers hope and help and healing and wholeness for those who are struggling in the area of addiction. It is a privilege to have you joining us. Want to do our best to provide information, inspiration, encouragement for those individuals and family members who are struggling with the issue of addiction. Steve Rauch is my name, and I have the privilege of co-hosting this show with the Executive Director of the Recovery Center, Trisha Saunders. Welcome back to Road to Recovery.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for your passion to help people get healthy and whole and really be happy in their own lives and in the lives of their family.
It's what I love to do.
Yeah, well, it's very important work, and if somebody doesn't step up and do that, the work does not get done. So thank you for your willingness to lead a team of folks and make that happen right here in our community. We ask the Fairfield Hocking Major Crimes Unit Commander Eric Brown to join us again. He's been on the show before. We've asked him to join us again. We alluded to something earlier in a previous show, and we want to flesh that out a little bit. Welcome back to Road to Recovery.
Appreciate the additional segment.
Yeah, you're welcome. We do certainly appreciate your time. There was some talk mentioned, Trisha, about marijuana, with a lot of different names, I guess, through the years, but we're talking about this drug, marijuana, and in your work in the Recovery Center, you are passionate about people not seeing it for a harmless kind of thing.
That is correct. I think so many people do, and the majority of people that we work with have used marijuana at some point in their lives thinking it wasn't going to be a problem. However, that's not, the realization that takes place after a while. It can cause a lot of damage in a person's life. And I worked with a lot of young people who were teenagers who lost interest in some of the most important things in their lives at a very early time, and it was attributed to their marijuana use. So I think it's a really important thing for us to talk about and educate the community about, especially with the medicinal marijuana issue.
Absolutely.
It is not a victimless kind of thing. There are lots of victims. Commander Brown, you see these victims in your line of work.
We do. There's been a lot of talk on the marijuana issues, and it's a different day and age now. We're starting to see a little bit of that movement towards the medical side, that issue, and also the decriminalization issue on marijuana. And I hear a lot from other representatives across the United States, again, the states where that initiative has passed, California and Colorado, Michigan, some others thrown in there, very few, but I get to talk to those agents from time to time and get to hear their views and aspects on it.
Well, my guess is it's been great for them. Those states are really excited about that they made that decision.
Yeah,
is that correct?
It's been everything but that.
Oh, everything but that.
At least from a law enforcement perspective. They're in the process, some of these states, on trying to repeal those efforts that were put into place on those initiatives, because it's, literally been a train wreck for them.
You told me off the air that in California they talk about medicinal use, medical problems, but in California it's a very low percentage of people who actually have a medical need for marijuana.
Right. They're, the way that they, and I don't know how they put their statistics together, but they were showing about 2% of those individuals that were going to the dispensaries out there actually had what they believed to be a medical purpose for that. So it's pretty low.
Yeah, I think it's being used in other ways. You mentioned that the THC level, that's the element in the marijuana?
Yeah, that's the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana.
Very good. And back in the day, when you first started in law enforcement, some 30 years ago, it was a lot lower than it is today. Are there percentages that would indicate that?
Yeah, they can test the levels of THC in marijuana. And, back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, even early 80s, you were lucky to get 6% at best THC levels. Now we're seeing it 20% plus, which doesn't seem like a big number, but when you compare that to 6% and those levels now, it's really high.
3.5 times
Yes.
the potency. of the drug. How does that affect your work there at the recovery center?
Well, yeah, it's pretty overwhelming when you think about the effects on a person's physical well-being. One marijuana joint can be the equivalent of 10 cigarettes, and we all know cigarettes are not healthy for people. So you multiply that times 10 for each time a person smokes a joint. The THC that you were talking about also has a very long life in the brain. So it will coat the brain, heart, reproductive system, and it will stay in the person's body for a long time. A person who smokes marijuana every day can have THC in their brain for a month after they smoke it. So it can coat your brain cells 400 times thicker than they're supposed to be. So try to tell me that doesn't affect your thinking. It absolutely does.
You could make the argument that smoking pot, marijuana weed, is actually causing brain damage when it creates that kind of element in the person's body.
You certainly could.
Now, nobody would say a drug like that is harmless, or those kinds of things. It does affect individuals. It's not your father's pot that folks are smoking these days. You used a phrase last program about a gateway drug. Help us understand what you meant by that.
Well, and again, the treatment professionals can probably attest to that more. I mean, I've always had a pretty common look at the gateway definition, but I don't think there's any question that there are certain drugs out there, the alcohol, the marijuana issues that are considered to be gateway. And I think there's individuals that, as we talked about, we're prone to addiction. And just the mere use of either or both opens doors to other issues with drug use.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and typically somebody will try marijuana before they're the age of 21, and we know the brain is still developing into the mid-20s, so you're affecting a brain that's still developing by putting these chemicals in it, and it does affect a person's short-term and long-term memory. And when you talk to people who have used marijuana a lot, you can tell pretty quickly within a few questions if they've been recently under the influence of it. You can tell by their energy level. They stop doing any kind of activities. It causes an amotivational syndrome, meaning they just really don't care as much, but they don't see that to be a problem until they stop using it and they start feeling better.
Well, and then also the influence that they have. You're talking about moms and dads who remember maybe the 60s or 70s. They tell me if you remember them, you weren't really there, but I think maybe they do remember some elements of that, and they think it's no big deal, and the kid caught with a bag of weed and, slap them on the hand, try not to do that too much, or that kind of thing. It really does affect them, and then others who are more prone to addiction can't handle it, and the gate is thrown wide open, and they have significant problems. Have you seen that?
Yes, we certainly have. And some people, because of their genetic makeup, like you said, that they become addicted much more easily than somebody else. So it's like they have they don't have a turn-off switch in their brain. Sometimes people have eating problems and they just don't feel full. Same thing happens with some people with drug use. They just can't stop. And it's really hard for other people to understand that. And like you and Commander Brown both said, the drugs, the marijuana that was used 30 or 40 years ago is not the same marijuana that's being used today.
And that creates additional problems for you. Talk to us from the law enforcement side of things. It seems that the drug has easy accessibility. We've heard of pods that are being created, water used to grow this. It's gone high tech to some degree.
Well, it has. Again, it's very scientific. Chemically treated waters, controlled growing environments, hybrid seeds, just like in the farming industry. So when you put all these elements together, again, it's a complicated process. You just don't throw those seeds in the ground and put water on them and hope that they grow. The other thing that I was thinking about to give you some connectivity to all this is when we go on drug raids, where it may be a methamphetamine drug raid, crack cocaine, an opiate heroin drug raid, we usually always find marijuana in those drug raids. I mean, it all attaches itself. And I think that's a good example for people in the community to show that nexus between what they feel is something very harmful and the marijuana issue that a lot of people don't see, maybe have an attitude that that's not quite that bad. But there's that nexus there. Yes. There always is. It's pretty constant.
Not everyone moves on to the next drug, but many
No.
people are striving to find the next high that is better than the last one, and they become addicted and can't stop. They can't function without it then.
It
So
seems
it's
to
very
me
common.
that it's very clear that if you have those experiences, it's obvious that the marijuana is a gateway drug. I've talked to addicts and they say, oh, I'd never use a needle for heroin. I would never do that. And you know it's only a matter of time. If they don't call 687-4500 and talk to the Recovery Center folks, it's only a matter of time. They're going to end up there if they can't get a handle on their issues. And quite frankly, you can't get a handle on your own. You need help. You need others to come alongside you. And so I think your experience has proven it definitely opened the gate for other things.
Yeah, it does. Again, there's people that don't have that addictive personality and can maybe moderate, whether it's alcohol use, marijuana use, and they don't become full-blown drug addicts. They don't. But boy, I tell you, that just that door being open just a little bit can cause some really serious issues.
The risk for you personally in getting involved, but then the risk of those friends and family members that maybe can't handle it like you can handle it. It's, to me, way too high a price to pay to even go there because it's expensive to incarcerate people. It's expensive to rehabilitate people, and it would be so much wiser to not go there in the first place.
I think we're both glad you brought that up because, as you pointed out, Eric, that people see it from the front end, but we see all of the consequences and all of the mess that has to be cleaned up and all of the expense for the community. You agree?
Yeah, there's a great deal. Again, you got to look at the back end of this issue, or a drug issue in general, and I don't think a lot of people do that. Where you're looking at the backside costs on this incarceration, the court systems, the recovery, the medical, exactly. There's a lot of risk and a lot of high costs that come along with this, let alone the risk to themselves, to other human life. When you're talking about operating motor vehicles while under the influence, I mean, there's a lot of serious issues there.
And in workplaces, the safety risk for other employees or other people having to do somebody's work because they're not as productive as they should be, that happens all the time.
All of those corollary things that don't often get mentioned. We got about a couple of minutes left. Let me play devil's advocate for just a second. Why don't we grow this thing? God gave us the seeds and gave us the plant, and so why don't we grow this and help people who have medical issues? And how could that possibly be bad?
Well, as I've said, I know Trisha can probably talk better about this than I can, but there's synthetic cannabinoids that mimic marijuana. And if there was ever shown to be a medical use for that, I'm sure that could come into play besides the actual smoking of marijuana, which has all the inherent risks. So, yeah, there's synthetics out there that can mimic that.
And not lower the person's immune system in the process. And why would we let the community decide? When are we going to start deciding when things should be medicine, or is the FDA that approves these things? Shouldn't it be their call?
It's a very interesting point that you make. I don't think we've had heroin on our ballot or cocaine. Maybe we should find a way to legalize that.
Give people more energy.
Right, exactly. That it would seem ridiculous to even make that statement, right? But yet this other seems to be an okay kind of thing to do. It is obvious in the medical field, the law enforcement field, the recovery field. It is not a safe, effective way to help anybody. It really has many negative consequences. Thank you for your willingness to come and share about this very important subject. It is certainly a hot item across the state of Ohio and across the country, and it is comforting to know that people like Eric Brown, the commander of the Fairfield Hockey Major Crimes Unit, is on the front lines being vocal about what needs to happen to make our community safe and the lives of people to be happy and healthy. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Trisha Saunders, thank you for your insights. As the commander mentioned, on the back end, you see the back end, and it creates some challenges for you, and you're obviously passionate about seeing people be healthy and happy and whole, and we understand that there's better ways to use your time and financial resources than to participate in this kind of activity. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having us today.
Thank you for joining us for Road to Recovery, a special edition of Road to Recovery dealing with the subject of marijuana. We trust if you are struggling or someone that you know is going through a very challenging time to give the Recovery Center a call. That's 740-687-4500. That's 687-4500. And they will come alongside you and give you the strength and encouragement, inspiration, and help that you need to be happy and whole and healthy. Join us next time for Road to Recovery.